Let's do it on a Tuesday. Hello, how are you? It is the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. Good to have you along. Mike Chico Bormann with you until 3 o'clock. Of course, yesterday we had the day off, obviously Memorial Day, and hope everyone enjoyed themselves and family and friends if you were able to get together. Hopefully also we're able to take time and remember why we celebrated Memorial Day, and so hopefully many of you were able to enjoy the festivities and hopefully had some good family time. But we are now back, and it's time to get to work. 216-626-7901. 216-626-7901. Michael Bohm is here. Bohm, I'm guessing a lot of fun and, well, laughter for you this weekend, I'm guessing.
More or less, yeah, much of the same.
Yes, you laugh. Now, do you laugh as much off the air as you do on the air?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. It doesn't really matter whether I'm on or off the air. I'm still Giggles McGee regardless.
I mean, you definitely did when I worked with you at other places, but I didn't know if, like, in say like a family barbecue. Let's say the Bohm clan had a family barbecue. Like, do you just kind of like, yeah, it wasn't very funny. Yeah. Oh, I'm good. How's it going?
You know what? I do. I definitely don't giggle as much around my family. I'll admit that. I'm more shy around my family. But with you, Chico, I can be myself.
Oh, well, that's exactly what we're striving for, Bohm. It's good to have you back on this Tuesday. All right, we've got a lot to get to. NBA Finals. Boy, we really thought. I mean, didn't everybody out there pretty much think, okay, if the Celtics are able to get Game 6 in Miami, yeah, we like their chances to get to the NBA Finals and make history. Come back from a 3-0 deficit. Again, 150 teams, now 151. But 150 teams had gone up 3-0 in a series and had never, ever dropped the series. But Miami came dangerously close, but then able to pull it out. And so it is the Miami Heat. It is the Denver Nuggets. Miami probably would like to have some of those guys rested, Jimmy Butler and company, and plus they're getting a little bit older, but that won't be the case as they take on Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. Coming up at 2 o'clock, we're going to talk to our buddy Mitch Lawrence with Sirius XM NBA Radio. Get his thoughts not only on the previous series, but a preview for the upcoming NBA Finals and some decisions to be made. By the way, one guy, this just came in not too long ago, but within the last half hour or so, Bob Myers, the general manager, I don't know if he's president too, but Bob Myers of the Golden State Warriors has stepped down as GM. Not a big surprise for me. I thought, we talked about this, I think, last week, and maybe it was before that, right, when the season ended for Golden State. And it seems like any time a guy or gal, if you ask a question, I say, Bohm, why don't you go for a swim in Lake Erie after the show?
Yeah, sure, why not?
It's not the answer I was looking for.
No.
Your reply has to be, I'll tell you what, I'll think about it. Now say it.
I'll tell you what, Chico. I'll give it consideration.
Okay, and that means that you will not be taking a dip in Lake Erie. Bob Myers, kind of same thing. Like most of the time, not all the time, but 70% of the time, somebody says, let me think about it, usually means, nah. And Bob Myers is stepping down. Now, how long he'll be away, who knows? Could be a year, could be 2 years. Here's the thing. No matter how long he's away, unless it's a decade, if he decides next year, the year after, because I do think he's going to take some time. I don't think and it sounds like he's going to take some time away, a year, whatever. But whenever he's back on the market, whenever he decides that he wants to get back in, and he's going to want to get back in, there will be a lot of teams lined up for his services. The guy's done an incredible job with Golden State, so no surprise there. But Bob Myers stepping down. We got the topic for today seems to be a lot of decisions going on. The Boston Celtics, obviously their season came to an end last night, and now they have pretty big decisions. Jaylen Brown, would he be, could he be, is he worth being a $300 million player? Boom, that would be $60 million. 5 years, $295 million. The only team that can offer it is the Boston Celtics. So we talk about like skyrocketing contracts in like football and baseball and I mean everywhere. But the NBA is like $60 million a year. And Jaylen Brown is a great player, but 60, it's not so much like Jaylen Brown's not worth it. I'm just saying, in general, $60 million for 1 year is just mind-boggling to me.
The other thing, Chico, with the Celtics is I have to wonder if like this late surge in this playoff run is a red herring for that franchise. Like if it leads them in the wrong direction, because it felt like they were falling apart before that. You know, and so
like Joe Mazzulla, like is he going to be back? Is he not going to be back?
And then also just maintaining that core of players where it felt like things were contentious. You know, it basically felt like guys were calling one another out in the media.
Yeah.
And so,
just go ahead. I know you want to present your term. What was going on behind closed doors? What would you term it?
I guess you could say, Chico, internal discord.
Yes. Bing, ding, ding, ding. Yeah. Internal discord. And you had Joe. That's what was so funny about it. Not funny, I guess, if you're Boston. But what was so funny about it is like they went down 3-0, and Joe Mazzulla had no problem saying it. Jason Tatum had no problem saying it. Jaylen Brown. I mean, everybody. It wasn't like it was the worst kept secret. But now all of a sudden, you know, you storm back in that series. You fall short, but you storm back in that series. Is all good and well in Beantown? I wouldn't think so. Although one of the reasons I wanted to see them win, and I don't really have a horse in the race. I don't care who, it's Miami, great. One of the reasons, though, I wanted to see Boston win because I wanted to see them go as far as possible because the situation with Joe Mazzulla, I think, is very fascinating. Like, what transpires? I mean, I'd say he did a pretty decent job. Now, you can say, well, he went 3 games, went down 3 games to none in that series, and it's the 8th seed. And, I mean, Miami is Miami. We'll get into that more just after 2 o'clock with Mitch Lawrence. But I don't know. I mean, I guess nothing would surprise me. Put it this way. As far as NBA coaches go, nothing should surprise you. I mean, you had Monty getting fired. Monty. That's actually for Colin Montgomery. But Monty getting fired in Phoenix. Budenholzer, which you thought. So, I mean, at this point, anything's possible. Joe Mazzulla, it was a situation where Ime Udoka, all that transpired behind closed doors. I don't know if you call that internal. Now, Bohm, I think what you would term the stuff that was going on with Ime Udoka, I don't know if you'd say that would be internal discord. Might we just say that's hanky-panky?
I think...
And we don't know all the details, but I think hanky-panky seems to work.
I think that is the better term, but I do believe that a case could be made that such actions could fringe on internal discord. It certainly caused a ripple within the organs of the organization.
The organs of the organization. Well,
Very internal.
I don't know if I've never heard that. I don't know if I've ever not never. I don't know if I've ever heard that. I've never heard anyone say within the organs of the organization.
That just came naturally. You like that?
Yeah, I mean that's
just
the
riffing here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the brilliance of Mr. Bombastic.
That's Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Mista.
Yeah, Mista Bombastic.
Gonna
Hey, you
misspell
kind of
it.
you're getting like you're getting a following around for the laughter, the giggles. They by the way, they apparently they gave you some leg room back there. How you feeling? We want you to feel very. Boom. Our number one priority, not only with the Chico Bormann show, but Big Play in general, is to make sure that you feel comfortable, relaxed, and at ease while working. And is it more accessible now for you?
You could say I've been given more leg room at this job, Chico. But normally, I'm like, you see me sitting to the side like this, so I could like stretch out my legs. Now I can sprawl them out onto the desk.
You're a bit
It's
of a tall
delightful.
fella, and you don't have to worry about like when I first started. Before we brought you aboard, it was every other day, hell, like every other segment, I was, tripping over this plug or pulling this one out. So this is good. This is good. You have leg room, and obviously you're a prima donna. So you said, I can't work in this environment, and things have to change, or I walk. And, well, you see what happens, kids. That's how Bohm rolls. 216-626-7901. Yes.
Just want to shout out Cody behind the scenes for taking the initiative and doing it by himself, coming at 6 a.m. on Memorial Day, and just handling it.
Wow.
Chico. Yeah,
That's dedication.
Serious
right there.
initiative from our guy behind the scenes in the front office, if you will.
We
Cody.
have a lot of dedicated employees here. I will say that. A lot of dedicated employees. Oh, by the way, speaking of dedicated employees, did you hear? I didn't hear. I just saw him walk by a couple of times. Did you hear Padone? He had the first pitch at the captain's game. I heard a lot of lead up to it, but I don't know. It feels like there hasn't been a whole lot of chatter, which leads me to believe that maybe it didn't go so well. Do you have some inside information on that, Bohm?
I believe it has not happened yet, Chico. I want to say it's June 4th. Because he had the owner of the captains on the Reflog show yesterday, which I was present for that. So they were talking about it a lot on the show, and I remember the date June 4th. I feel like it's June 4th, and today is May 30th.
Because I thought that maybe you're right. Because I thought for sure that like if he threw a strike or it was anywhere near the strike zone, if it was put it this way. If he didn't embarrass himself, I figured he would flood the timeline, which I would do the same. Like if I,
Totally.
Because that's, it's something that, and it's nerve-wracking. I don't care if you've played. I don't care what, how athletic or unathletic you are. Like that's just a different environment. So apparently June 4th. Okay, we'll have to confirm the details.
Can I just say that I keep saying Guardian, that captain's owner seems like one of the coolest owners I've ever come across. I mean, granted, I don't come across many owners, but he just seems like such a regular dude. He had the big scraggly beard. He's just wearing regular clothes, and I wonder if that's what more minor league owners are like. If those are that's the sweet spot of being an owner.
So, just to clarify, Bohm, for you, a good guy resembles a scraggly beard and just ordinary clothes.
It was just it felt like a lot of authenticity.
Okay.
Like this guy
That's
was
good.
very genuine, and he was very real, and he was connecting, and he was laughing with them, and it was cool to see and kind of pick the brain of a minor league owner.
I'm a big authenticity guy.
Me too.
Authenticity and genuine. Like if you're not that way, and I've known a few, we won't mention any names. If you're not that way, no. But well, that's good. That's good. I'm glad that happened. I'm looking forward to June 4th if that's exactly when he's going to be throwing out the first pitch. We'll see. Speaking of, well, in this case, the Guardians organization, captains are affiliated with that, but the Guardians, boom, 2 out of 3 against the Cardinals, could have very easily been, should have been a clean sweep. I mean, when I saw, think about it. You give up 2 hits. You give up 2 hits in a game. You think it's a done deal. You're going to win the game. That didn't happen. But they bounced back. They bounced back in a big way, winning Sunday. I was at Sunday's game, winning Saturday. And then yesterday, a Baltimore Orioles team. And, folks, if you're just tuning in and you haven't really been following Major League Baseball, you're saying, well, win over the Orioles. Come on, the Orioles are a good team. And shout out, I want to give the Orioles organization credit because I know they're watching and they're huge fans of the Chico Bormann show. I want to give the Orioles organization a lot of credit because Brandon Hyde was their manager through some very, very, very lean years. Normally what happens in those situations, those guys okay, they rough it out. They're the one that, is coming to the ballpark 45, 50 games below 500, and then all of a sudden things start to turn, and that manager, that skipper doesn't get to, live out and enjoy the pains, the fruits of the labor. And Brandon Hyde has been able to. But Baltimore is a very good team. Baltimore is right there in the American League East Division. The Guardians able to win yesterday. This is what I love, okay? I know that there's a lot of distress out there when it comes to the Guardians offense. I get it. One of the really, really bright spots for this Guardians organization, and now it's going to start to come to a head, but I think in a good way, is Logan Allen and Tanner Bybee. Like, Tanner Bybee pitched on Friday. Logan Allen pitched yesterday. And, I mean, boom. I don't know if you've watched these guys lately. But it's like whatever you can do, I can do better. And the reality is those two guys are most likely fighting for a spot in the rotation. The other one could be the odd man out. Now, again, still, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think Savali made his rehab start yesterday or the day before. Tristan, I think, makes his tonight, or maybe it's vice versa. And then you've got decisions to make.
Now, is Tristan in AAA, Columbus?
I believe so, yeah. So he will be, wherever he's at, he's making another rehab start. And all has gone okay. All has gone well for both Savali and Tristan. So those guys are due back. Bybee or Allen, one of those guys is probably going to go. Now, I know people have been saying, and I'm kind of laughing at this, well, you got to keep both of them. Well, what are you going to do with Cal Quantrill? Make him a setup man. No. You don't just pluck
Could you just have like a 7-man rotation? Just get that going?
6-man rotation.
6-man rotation?
Yeah, now you'll see that occasionally. Yeah, I mean, yeah, when you're trying to call ups and you're maybe trying to, rest some guys, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
There's a lot to like about them all, though. It is like you really are going to have to pick one odd man out at least.
Well, what I'm saying is, okay, I think what it is Savali, McKenzie definitely. Savali's back. And one of those two. And I don't know who you would choose. I mean, Logan Allen struck out 10 batters yesterday. He was outstanding. He
was sensational.
Say it again, Bo.
He was sensational.
He was sensational.
Dare I say, warranting of a chef's kiss. I'm not going to do it, though. Don't want to be the boy who cried wolf.
He was sensational. Tanner Bybee. Care to throw out an adjective for Bybee's? I mean, his changeup.
Remarkable.
Why do I even ask? Tanner Bybee, that changeup was filthy, nasty. And I love what he said after the game. They were interviewing him, and they said something about, tell us how it's gotten easier, and he's like, you know what? I pitch game to game. Instead of like saying, okay, well, this is what I am, and this is my arsenal, and if I don't have it, I don't have it. He's like, well, I threw the changeup a lot more in this game. Another game, my previous start, I threw the curve a little more. I'm not really set on one pitch or another. And then, of course, his fastball has so much life. I think he sat around like 97 or 98. It really is a case of like whatever you can do, I can do better between Bybee and Logan Allen. I wonder, and this is where it gets interesting. Now, I've heard people say, oh, trade Shane Bieber now because he'll get you more of a return now than he will, say, in July if, unfortunately, the Guardians are out of it or they deem themselves out of it or they deem themselves just not ready to make a run right now. I don't buy that. Now, I've already said, I'm already on record as saying, do I think Shane Bieber is going to be here long term? No. Do I think he's going to sign it to anybody who's thinking that he will? Forget about it. I mean, I will be beyond stunned if he does. And I like Shane Bieber, love Shane Bieber. Wish he would, wish he could keep everybody. That's not what that's not what the organization is all about, unfortunately, because that's the landscape of Major League Baseball and the landscape for the Cleveland Guardians. But as far as like trading him now, you can't do that when you're, what are they, 3.5 games out, I think, of Minnesota in the Central Division. So the Guardians are 3.5 games back of Minnesota in the Central. The Tigers are in front of them for second right now. They've got 4 games. After this series with Baltimore, they play tonight, Cal Quantrill on the bump, tomorrow against Baltimore, and then they go to Minneapolis, and they're going head-to-head with the Twins for 4 games. 4 games with the division leaders. And, look, we could be in a month's time, little over a month, maybe the Guardians have fell out of it. The offense just hasn't come out of their funk, and the bullpen is continuing to be taxed and just, not the same as last year because bullpens do, unfortunately, they're very volatile. It's year to year. Some guys look great one year. Some guys don't look so great next year. And Emmanuel Clase, okay, he's struggled a little bit. He's had his issues, but he's still steady. He's still the guy. No qualms about that. But you wonder about some of the setup guys. Trevor Stephan, James Karinchak. Boom, did you see what Karinchak did Friday? Or were you?
More disappointment?
He walked the bases loaded. Here is a...
Oof.
Here is just an awesome performance, right, by Tanner Bybee. Absolutely, positively dominates, right? And I'm sorry, Saturday. I keep saying Friday. Saturday. So Bybee is absolutely dominant, and in comes James Karinchak in the, when did he come in? In the 8th? 7th. And he promptly walked the bases loaded. Now, Sam Hentges, thankfully, Onions, was able to get out of it. Bases loaded, he's got to do something, and he got out of it. Bases loaded, nobody out, he gets out of it. So Sam Hentges with Onions. Somebody said on Twitter, no, they're boulders. We don't need to go into detail, but you know where I'm going with that. It's a Bill Rafteryism, and it's a good one to describe Hentges, at least on Saturday. So, but Karinchak is struggling. Trevor Stephan is struggling. Like, those high-leverage guys that you were expecting leading into Emmanuel Clase have struggled. He hasn't been himself. De Los Santos has been outstanding. So, these things change. Now, will they get better? Will they figure it out? You hope, but you don't know. So all I'm saying is you can't right now, with a 3.5 game deficit in the American League Central Division, you cannot, and they won't, trade away Shane Bieber. Now you're going to say, well, he's going to lose all the value. Okay, if they were to trade him in July, you mean to tell me that like teams that needed pitching are now all of a sudden going to go, yeah, you know what, we don't need it. There's going to be the Orioles, for instance. They're going to need pitching. Everybody needs pitching. And the Guardians have a surplus of pitching. It's just a matter of who's going to be around and who's not going to be around, or who's going to be pitching. Somebody's not going to be happy after Savali and McKenzie come back. Because, and again, this is a good problem to have. It is a very good problem to have. You have two youngsters in Tanner Bybee and Logan Allen, just, dominant performances. And, you're going to have to make a decision. They'll make a decision. Somebody's most likely going to be pitching in AAA. Now, this is where, instead of talking about Shane Bieber getting moved, and I don't want to do this, but again, this is, if you're going to move some guys, Tanner Bybee has already flashed at the major league level. Like, we didn't like the fact that Tristan McKenzie went on the DL when he did at the start of the year, or IL, or whatever the hell they call it these days. When McKenzie went down, when Aaron Savali went down, you're like, oh, well, it was an opportunity for Tanner Bybee and Logan Allen, a few other guys too, but really it was Bybee and Allen, and they have passed this with flying colors. So now, instead of saying teams looking at pitching going, well, I don't know, that Bybee's a little unproven and that Allen's a little unproven, I'm not saying that, oh, absolutely, this is what they are for the next 5, 8. But they have shown that they have great stuff and that they are the lights are not too bright at the major league level. So there are going to be teams, make no mistake, if you're one of those that says they got to make a deal, they got to bring in a bat, they got to do something. And I'm not against that. Matter of fact, I'm totally for it. I just don't think it's realistic to think they're going to think about right now dealing Shane Bieber when you're only 3.5 games back. You're in the AL East, you're in another division, maybe that changes. But now all of a sudden, Bybee is someone that organizations are saying, how about this kid? How about, and you still have, Gavin Williams is down there. He's dominating in the minors. Espino's hurt. Logan Allen, obviously, we talked about. So this is going to get interesting, but it's a good problem to have if you're a Guardians fan and if you're in the Guardians organization. It's going to be tough to make the decision, no doubt, but it's one that you will happily make because you have two guys that are really just kicking butt right now and have taken these opportunities and run with it. All right, 216-626-7901. Boom, you seem to be absolutely mesmerized with the floor guys out there. You seem to be transfixed and almost in a state of hypnosis. Are you okay?
Chico, I'm actually very curious of the strategy here. So you see, they're leaving space to put tiles in between. You still see they're leaving space.
You know what that's for?
No, that's what I'm wondering.
I informed them that. Remember our police officer that walks?
Yeah.
I told them she's got, because we can't. I said we can't do the show. I told her this. You were here. I can't begin the show unless we see her making her daily walk.
There's just enough space for one row of tiles, and I don't know why are they leaving that out. But that's you're trying to make her tightrope.
Boom! I think you really. Do you want to get up and ask them? Go ahead.
It does pique my interest. I'm just hoping that I'll find out what the plan of attack is here, but before the end of the show. You have been just staring out that window, out that door. Now maybe that doesn't mean I'm not listening.
Now
though, Chico.
Maybe you're saying, God, this guy he's so boring, and I'm can't wait to leave. And wow, look at that sunshine, and it is out in abundance today on the shores of Lake Erie. But yes, you are. I'll tell you what, when we break, because we got a break here coming up before we get ready for Fair or Foul. When we break, we will ask them.
They're pulling tiles up now. We got action.
We've got, by the way, for people that don't know, we're at Burke Lakefront Airport, and we're going to, by the time this thing is all done, it's going to be pretty damn sweet. You walk into Burke Lakefront Airport, and for the longest time, and even still, it's kind of, wow, there's not a whole lot of, well, it's changing, and it's going to change in a much bigger way. Give it a few months. Say, football season, wink, wink. Football season, these hallways out here that I'm pointing to and Bohm's staring at, disturbingly staring at, it could be hopping. It could be absolutely hopping.
Chico, I'm just doing some people watching while I listen to you and soak in your words, your wise words.
Thanks, Bo. All right. We're going to break. When we come back, Bohm is going to do a half-assed fair or foul because he hasn't been paying attention to anything, which means because he doesn't prepare ahead of time for it. He claims that he wants it to be off the cuff. But while he's normally frantically searching for topics for fair or foul, he has used that time to stare, and I'm guessing these guys are maybe a little concerned, like, Who's the guy in there? The guy in the purple shirt just keeps like eyeballing us. Is there something wrong here?
Fortunately, Chico, we haven't locked eyes yet, so there's that.
Do you want to lock eyes?
No.
I can say something.
That's when it gets awkward.
Put in a good word.
That's when you know you've been caught red-handed.
I'll put in a good word for you if you want me to.
I'm trying to avoid it.
All right.
I'm actively avoiding it.
All right. Coming up top of the hour, we're going to get back to the NBA Finals, which is now all set. We thought it was going to be all set long before last night, but, man, the Boston Celtics gave it a gallant effort. They come up short at home in Game 7. Miami Heat advance. We'll talk about Miami and Denver. Also talk about what Boston could be decisions they're going to be making here on the horizon that they have to make. Jaylen Brown, Joe Mazzulla. What is this team going to look like? Mitch Lawrence from Sirius XM NBA Radio will join us at 2. And then later in the 2 o'clock hour, I need a clarification on DeAndre Hopkins. I'll explain coming up in about 45 minutes or so. We'll take a break, step aside. Chico Bormann Show. We come back. Fair or foul? It's all right here on the Big Play Network. Welcome back. Tuesday afternoon. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous day on the shores of Lake Erie. We broadcast live from Burke Lakefront Airport. Big Play Network. The show is called The Chico Bormann Show, and well, aptly named. I'm Chico Bormann. Hanging with you until 3. Now, you can stream us live each and every day, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 on Twitter. You can do that at Chico Show, CLE. Also on YouTube, The Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe, and certainly we appreciate it. All right, real quick, because I don't want to leave you people hanging here. As we went to break, Bohm has been staring, like just in a trance, staring out the window, wondering, how the hell did I land this gig? We have guys that are installing a new floor out in the hallway. And Bohm has been staring and staring and staring, and he's wondering why they're doing things the way they're doing them. And I said, Bohm, during the break, go ask him. And you're kind of like a little, you're afraid. You're afraid to ask them.
Chico, when you first walked in and they were like being all like, first off, the communication with them, because they intimidate me.
They intimidate you?
Yes.
You're intimidated by the floor guy.
Basically, right now, it's their world. We're just living in it. You know, we have to follow their rules, because if we were to ruin the floor, like their process, then I feel like
we're paying for it. Well, not you and I, but
yeah, I don't want to make them pay extra.
Well, but I mean, Bohm, the priority is our show, and if you have to leave to go to the bathroom, which you usually do about 4 times an hour, just to get away from me. I mean, I think you want to know, and I think they would be very receptive, because you know what it means? Somebody is noticing our work. Somebody appreciates what we're doing out here. We're not just doing this by ourselves, and you know, they have an audience. I'm sure they appreciate that you have an audience, that they have an audience in you.
Look, I suppose I can see where you're coming from, because I love a good audience. You know, I love audience, but yeah. It's for the wrong reasons, Chico. I'm like questioning their strategy.
I'm not gonna. Well, I will say it. You, I believe, uttered the term incompetence.
Well, I walked back in during the break. I smell incompetence.
And with that, kids, on this Chico Bormann Show on this Tuesday, it is time for the great bombastic and fair or foul.
Well, Chico, I actually would like to start right there with the tile, because this was the first fair or foul that popped in my mind today. Fair or foul, before we get into the sports and dive in head first. Fair or foul. 75% of this lounge area will be covered with tile by the end of the show.
Foul.
Yeah, you think it'll take that much longer?
Well, I mean, okay, end of the show is 3 o'clock.
I want to say we're over 25% at this point.
Oh, I can only see right in front. I don't have the expanded view, and God knows. Well, I should say fair then, because you have been staring at it now for the first half hour of the show, so you have a much better idea. Boom, they're picking up the tile. See,
you gotta look at that one.
Bohm is really upset, because after they lay the tile, then they're coming back and picking up the said tile, the same tile that they laid down. Are you picking up what I'm laying down? Are you picking up what I'm putting? So Bohm is really just, he's mesmerized with this. He's mesmerized.
I am. I'm like, I don't think, I would say foul on this one, because instead of laying down more tile, they're just picking up old ones and putting them somewhere else.
They only have a little over an hour, and I mean, no, I wouldn't, unless they're bringing in about 6 more guys. I don't think so. But anyway, can we get into sports,
yes,
please?
Let's do it. Let's immerse ourselves in Los Deportes. Chico, as I want to start with an interesting point that you brought up. You mentioned Jaylen Brown at the end of Celtics, and at the end of the Celtics being defeated at the hands of the Heat, being eliminated, and you said, you know, he has a big contract looming. You said they potentially might have to pay him $60 million a year.
5 years, 200. Well, they're the only team that can make the offer to him, because it's his team. 5 years, $295 million. Yeah, They have a decision to and here's the other thing. He has a decision to make, too, because he's hinted that he's not happy there. Anyway, go ahead. Well, go ahead with your question, and then we'll get into it.
Well, my question is twofold. First off, this is an NBA problem. Like, this is something that I guess the NBA needs to reset the salary and, like, how they pay their players.
Fair or foul, the NBA
Fair or foul?
Foul? I mean, I can't speak to, like, there's skyrocketing salaries, and if guys can, I always say, like, you you get what you're worth. You know, if you can, if somebody puts your value at $60 million, is crazy and is just unfathomable to us as fans. $60 million per year is, I mean, that's, now, I think next year, if I'm not mistaken, they're putting in some rules that's going to scale back what you can do salary cap-wise, which could also play into that because you're going to have that money tied up into him and him. You've got Tatum. But I just don't think, my guess is Boston absolutely extends the offer and Jaylen Brown says yes for two reasons. One, Boston has to do it because things have gone. Now, you can say, oh, well, they haven't gotten to the final. Okay, but they've done pretty well with those two guys. Jaylen Brown is a good two-way player. I know he gets overshadowed by Jason Tatum. I know that he chirps a little bit and he's not happy. But do you honestly think, boom, in your right mind, can you see Jaylen Brown going 5 years, $295 million? I'm good. Nowhere else is he going to make that kind of cash.
Yeah, and in some ways, you know, I can see that as a positive for like when a team is able to retain players in certain markets and whatnot. At the same time, it kind of reminds me of like, and I know it's not an identical scenario, but it reminds me of how the NFL rookie salary scale from like new first-round draft picks, how that used to be so insane. Like thinking back to Sam Bradford making as much as a premier quarterback.
Yeah, it would be and no, it was the signing bonus.
Yeah,
it wasn't. They were guaranteed like a $50 million signing bonus or whatever. It was the next guy up from where you were last year. And then they did. Now that needed to be corrected because you had guys that hadn't proven anything that were getting more than guys. Yeah, this isn't that because Jaylen Brown's been with the team and he's up for his next deal. He's reached free agency. So you know what? Yeah. What are the numbers? The NBA's making money hand over fist. So okay, I want my piece of the pie. I don't begrudge. I mean, it's not. As long as they can pay it out, then he's fine. But it's not like the rookie that we're talking about. We were talking about guys like Sam Bradford. Now, I'm not talking about once he became a quarterback, but I'm talking about guys coming out of school and before they even play a down of football, they're getting, $30, $40, $50 million to put their name on the dotted line. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, Chico. And the other thing, because I know it's not, as I said, I know it's not the same as like the salary cap, but some of the problems kind of seem similar to me in terms of just that number is going to keep going up. That max contract that players are going to demand is going to continue to rise. And I was not aware of what you said coming next season about sort of stabilizing that issue.
Yeah, I'd have to, to be full disclosure, I don't know every last detail about it, but I know that there's something in place that's going to kind of, scale back some things a little bit. So, yeah.
Now, I wanted to, you already answered my follow-up to that fair or foul, but I want to ask you just to tweak it a little bit. Fair or foul, Celtics make an NBA Finals in the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum era.
So, okay, this is based on Jaylen Brown is back, obviously.
Yeah, well,
my thinking that Jaylen
Yeah, you
Brown.
said, yeah.
Yeah, I think they need to do a better job as far as some of the ancillary players and who they bring in. But, yeah, I think, look, Jason Tatum, both these guys are great players. They're young. Jaylen Brown, as I said, and sometimes this gets overlooked. This guy is great on both sides of the ball. In today's NBA, put it this way: if you're going to pay a guy $60 million a year, and it's a ridiculous amount of cash. If you're going to pay a guy that much per year, yeah, he better be a two-way guy, and he definitely is. So I'll say fair on that. But Brad Stevens needs to get to work, just like JB Bickerstaff needs to get to work, and everybody needs to get to work as far as roster construction. But it's not – I don't think the answer is saying, well, they didn't make it to the finals, so and they haven't the last 2 years, and you know, you look at their playoff home record, horrible. But I think it would be a huge mistake to just say, all right, Tatum, Brown, break them up. Like, who's coming in to replace Jaylen Brown? It's kind of like what we talk about with coaches. Well, you got to fire him. Or who are you getting? I don't know. You got to kind of have an answer for that. And I think he's back. I think they want him back, and there's no way he's turning down $60 million a year.
Certainly a lot of questions surrounding that Celtics organization. But moving on, Chico, and still sticking with the NBA postseason here, I thought Stephen A. had something interesting. He had an interesting take today when he said that the Nuggets run was more impressive than the Heat's to reach the NBA Finals. Do you think that's fair or foul?
I got to go foul on that, even though, because here's the thing. I think what we're finding out, like the Heat was a number 8 seed. The Heat, and I'm going to get into this with Mitch Lawrence, like, does anybody really, like, Caleb Martin could have very easily, I think Jimmy Butler got the MVP of the series. Caleb Martin easily could have gotten it. But, I mean, you got guys like Caleb Martin, you've got guys like, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, like, what Miami's doing and has been able to do with, I don't want to say just guys that can't play, but, I mean, Denver does have, they were a number 1 seed. Denver does have Nikola Jokic, the best player in the universe. Jamal Murray is a great, great player. Now he's playing consistently great. So, no, I would disagree with that.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Chico. I think to me,
Denver's been impressive, and I'm rooting for them. But to say that it's been a greater feat than what Miami's done, I can't go there.
I feel like they had to overcome the bigger storylines. Well, I shouldn't say overcome, but they had like the bigger storyline moments, the Nuggets, in their run, eliminating LeBron, Jokic's performance, some of the big moments out of Jamal Murray, and the fact that they just won so handedly, I think is very impressive in itself.
Okay, now that I like that argument for Denver. I mean, but I just think Miami being an 8th seed,
exactly,
and those players around. Again, you don't have the best player in the league. Denver does. You have a guy in Jamal Murray that, I mean, we've seen what he can do. We saw him in the Lakers series. Like, he was monstrous. Jokic is Jokic, but you know, Jokic needs help. They always say it. You know, that one star is not enough, and you got to get help, even if it's Nikola Jokic. And Jamal Murray has stepped up big time. And oh, by the way, he's a damn good basketball player.
Yeah, and I hate that argument too that like Jokic isn't playing with any all-stars. Like, Jamal Murray, I mean, come on, that guy is basically an all-star. We've seen it.
Yeah, he's upper echelon, borderline elite. He's got to be more consistent.
And sure, but I feel like in the postseason, man, he turns it on. You know, if anyone can turn a switch on, it's Jamal Murray.
Why do I get the feeling you're about to make a joke? Because you said that with a smirk on your face.
No, that's all I got, Chico. I'm not a real comic. I'm just being, you know, weird.
Being bone.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's move on to baseball now because, Chico, we're cautiously optimistic today. Fingers crossed. This isn't a fluke. Fair or foul. The Guardians are out of their slump.
Foul. I mean, they scored 5 runs yesterday, and that's
3 out of their last 4. That's not bad.
Well, but you said out of their funk, meaning I'm looking at offense. I'm looking at the bats. But yeah, I mean, they're finding. Look, we already know. I mean, the numbers are crazy. How many games they've had, 1-run games they've had, and what they were getting by and doing last year, which is very impressive, and certainly in the month of September they were doing it, now all of a sudden they're having tougher times doing it. But, what happens is you put yourself in these situations so much, some are going to go your way, some aren't going to go your way. But when you do find a way to get it done, St. Louis was playing great ball, and they took 2 out of 3. Now you've got 2 more games with Baltimore, and again, Baltimore is not, your father's Orioles. These are, this is a very, very good team. Actually, that's not right, because your father's Orioles would have been dominant, like 70s, 80s type.
We talking pre-Ripken.
Yeah, even pre-Ripken. Well, Ripken was in the 80s with Eddie Murray and later, but
Brooks Robinson.
Okay, that's he wasn't in the 80s. That's all right. But yes, I think that if they can take 2 out of 3 from Baltimore, big one tonight, getaway day tomorrow, and then boom, if they're able to take 2 out of 3, and I want to get ahead of myself, I don't want to jinx them, but they take 2 out of 3, they even sweep. How much hype going into that Minnesota series? Albeit early, it'll be June, but hey, it feels like you've got to take advantage of that opportunity, especially for a team that has struggled so much. That would be a statement to go on the road to Minnesota after taking care of business in Baltimore and winning some games. Then I'll start talking about being out of a funk, but not after just 2 out of 3 from the Cards. Because, again, they lost a game where the guy threw a 2-hitter.
That was absurd.
You
out-hit him, 8-2?
Yeah, but they found a way to win. They found a way to win
a little bit, and I'm just trying to be hopeful about them.
I know you are, Bo.
Yeah.
You always look, they're playing hard. They're really hustling.
It's like, what would Tito say? Well, they're getting their bats on the balls.
He
had making contact.
Had
That's
a
encouraging.
Had a real good breaking ball. I love Tito. By the way, somebody on Twitter is seriously saying they need a new voice and to fire him. And before you say, well, okay, that's Twitter, and yeah, I know, but it's somebody that I know watches them a lot. You can criticize him. I'm not saying that he's beyond critique or beyond criticism or anything like that. But really? You're going to fire the guy right now? While you're at it, why don't you just make it a clean sweep and Chernoff and Antonetti? No. God. Anyway, go ahead.
All right, Chico, we'll put a bow on it with this one. Now,
I like that term for wrapping up fair foul. We'll put a bow on it.
Yeah, well, putting a bow on it, wrapping it up.
Yes.
They simply go hand in hand. Now, with all of that said, you mentioned the Orioles, and there certainly are a lot of pieces with that Baltimore Orioles club to feel encouraged about. Now, the AL Central is certainly a far worse division, I think it's fair to say, than the one in which the Orioles reside.
So you're saying the AL East is better than the AL Central.
Yes.
Boom, I don't like you going out on a limb. I know.
Okay.
But I just want to clarify. I don't like you going out on a limb, but yes, it is safe to say the AL East is better than the AL Central.
Fair or foul, or the O's finish top 2 in the AL Central if they were in it.
Top 2 in the AL Central?
Yes.
Well, boom, they're 34-20. The Minnesota Twins are 28-26. So, yeah, I think it's...
Then they would win it.
Boom, you know what? Ask one of these guys out here if you can switch. That you'll put on those really, really funky knee pads. And you'll lay tiles the way that you think it should be done, because apparently you've been second-guessing the way they're laying the tile.
I could probably do that better than I could lead a fair or foul segment.
No, I thought that was great. Fair or foul, if Baltimore was in the Central, they would win it. Now, granted, I know you're saying over 162 games, but, they're 14 games above 500. And they're only 4 back of Tampa, who's just been incredible. Now they're starting to see some of the injuries, but Baltimore's for real. This is not a fluke. Like I said, I love the fact that Brandon Hyde had to basically have his hide beaten for years and years during this rebuild, and now Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, who needs to get it going, Cedric Mullins, these pitchers. Like, I love the fact that now he's able to see it, and I think it's real. I don't think they're going anywhere. So, yes, Bohm, it is fair that Baltimore, if they were in the Central, would very well win.
Now, really quick follow-up. You think they finished top 2 in the AL East?
I do.
Fend off the Yanks?
Yeah, I do. The Yankees, there's just too many injuries, and you just know that there's more to come, and the rotation is so, is Luis Severino, can he keep his arm attached to his shoulder for the rest of the season? Probably not. So I would say right now, might be. I don't think it's that much of a prognostication. I think Baltimore and Tampa, AL East.
That'll do it for today's Fair or Foul.
That will do it for today's Fair or Foul, as you heard Michael Bohm say, or as he likes to say, he put a bow on it. We're going to take a break. When we come back to the NBA. A lot of questions. Boston Celtics, they stormed back. Give them credit. They stormed back from a 3-0 deficit, nearly made history, but they fell short. So it's the Miami Heat and the Denver Nuggets in the finals. We'll talk to Mitch Lawrence from Sirius XM NBA Radio about that. We'll also talk about quite a few questions facing the Boston Celtics as well. That when we come back. It is the Chico Bormann Show, and it is right here on the Big Play Network. I know many of you see me laughing all the time in here and think there's no way that he's having that much fun working with Michael Bohm, but Bohm is he is a character all his own. There's work being done out in the hallway. Guys like, he said something about we're going to be doing this. Bohm just goes, I mean, completely deadpanned. He's like, "Can you be quiet?" Guy's like, "Yeah, we'll try." Okay, because we're doing a live show until 3.
He asked if he could open the door a little bit, just to do a little work. I was like, "Can you be quiet?"
Only you, Bohm. Only you.
I mean, the show is the priority, is it not? You did not say that earlier?
I hope so. This guy right now is our priority as we go to the phone lines here. The Chico Bormann Show, again, brought to you by Tipico. Stream us live on YouTube. The Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe. Also on Twitter, @Chico Show CLE. Mitch Lawrence, longtime NBA columnist, now with Sirius XM NBA Radio. Well, Mitch, we thought we just might see history. 150 teams had gone up 3-0, and no one had ended up losing a series. Boston gave it a run. They won 3 in a row. A lot of people thought if they win Game 6 in Miami, look out going home, but that was not the case. What happened in Game 7 from your vantage point?
Well, first of all, Chico.
Yes, sir.
And by the way, there's no work being done here, so we have absolute silence, okay?
That is very
There
silent.
shouldn't have been a Game 7. There should never have been a Game 7. And that was the Heat's approach after all of America thought they were going to be hanging their heads and moping around after that 1,000,000-1 shot came in, that Derek White freak play, right? I mean, how do you get beat in basketball? That's a play I've never seen before, covering as many games as I've had, because the ball had to bounce absolutely correctly off a miss by Marcus Smart. And by the way, you want Marcus Smart taking that last shot? Well, I guess, that's the way it went. But so there shouldn't have been a Game 7. And the great thing about the Heat was, I don't know if you saw Eric Spoelstra at the podium immediately after the game. He said, we want to play this Game 7. We want to play it right now. And that's the way, from my understanding, all the players were like super confident going up to Boston because they knew they're the better team. And in these series, what happens is as the series unfolds and you go deeper in the series, one team basically knows they're better than the other team. Now, talent-wise, Boston's the better team, right?
Yeah.
But when you watch them play, who is the better TEAM? Who knows what they're doing offensively? Who runs stuff and the shots are not like an AAU tournament game, right? I mean, Boston runs this AAU offense, which is mindless. And then last night, and here's how the basketball gods work, right? They said, you know what? We're going to give the NBA a break. We're going to get this Derek White to get off a shot with 0.1. Lucky. So we have a Game 7. And then all the luck turned against Boston in the first possession when Jason Tatum ruined his ankle again, and he was no factor. He tried to gut it out. Absolutely no factor. So when he's not a factor and Jaylen Brown's out there, 8,000 turnovers as usual, you want to pay him all that money? Then you have a blowout, which is what we had, and the best team won, and the best team's going to go and play Denver, and we'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him a series.
Okay, we'll get into some of those decisions, including Jaylen Brown here in just a moment. By the way, that shot that you're speaking of, Derek White, did you see, I'm sure everybody did by now, the video that went viral of there was a wedding going on in South Beach?
Yes.
And they, who wouldn't think, game over, right? Yeah, they're all dancing. And then somebody had to tell everybody, we lost. Yeah, there's going to be a game.
The other interesting thing about the play was that there's a big controversy about why are they putting 3.0 up on the clock again when it should be about 2.5. When did Jimmy Butler actually get fouled? Okay. But, the way the whole play, first of all, what's Max Strus doing in the game guarding anyone? That's something they didn't get away with because he was the one who didn't account for Derek White going to the basket. So anyway, Game 7, when one team is playing as well as they are together and you have Boston they basically looked at Caleb Martin and said, go ahead and shoot. We'll give you all these open shots you want. They hardly covered them. They used the zone against Boston, and Boston's offense was just awful, as you saw. Jason Tatum's compromised. Jaylen Brown's awful. It's like Derek White trying to win this game in the latter stages of the third and fourth quarter for Boston. So, the Celtics, they have a lot of work to do. I mean, I don't know if Joe Mazzulla is the right coach, but they got to get somebody there who can teach them how to they got to trash or blow up their offense and come back with an offense that's basically go copy what Miami does or go copy another successful team where you're just not jacking up shots willy-nilly. It's absurd the way they handle their offense.
Mitch Lawrence joining us here on the Chico Bormann Show as, again, Game 7 last night of the Eastern Conference Finals. Not necessarily a game. Miami blows them out. Miami advances to take on Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. We'll talk about that here in a moment. All right, let's talk about the Boston Celtics here. You not only talked about the offense and the lack of imagination and all that sort of thing.
No structure.
Down 3 games to none. We all heard it, right? I mean, Joe Mazzulla wasn't hiding it. Seemed like Tatum and Brown weren't hiding it. Well, yeah, there's a disconnect in this locker room. Now, they always say winning cures all, and they did win 3 straight, but then they dropped Game 7. Joe Mazzulla, I don't know. Even if they get to the finals, it just never felt like a fit. Do you think there's any chance that he's back as head coach of the Celtics?
Didn't they sign him up full? They took the interim tag off. I don't know what he's got on a contract, but if it's me, I got to go find another coach. If I'm Wick Grossbeck, the owner of the Celtics, if I'm Brad Stevens, now they say that he is Stevens' protege. I don't know I don't know what the detail, what's going on behind the scenes there. I got to figure out a way to get a better coach than Joe Mazzulla. Because you know what? Every time you flail with like Milwaukee, with Giannis Antetokounmpo or with Tatum and Brown, that's a year off their careers. You got to take advantage of this stuff, right? You can't mess around. So, hey, Milwaukee's rolling dice with Adrian Griffin. I'm stunned. First-time head coach.
Yeah.
He can coach.
What'd you think of Nick Nurse, by the way?
Great hire. First of all, here's the deal. He was, years ago in Houston, when Daryl Morey was there, he was the G League coach for Daryl Morey. So they have a relationship.
Was that the Barnstormers? When was he the no.
I'm not sure where. I don't follow the G League. I try not to pay any attention to it.
I was a PA address announcer in Erie, PA, and Nick Nurse was a G League coach. That's how old I am.
He worked for Daryl Morey. When you've worked for Daryl Morey, you know what to expect, right? You're going to get a lot of input. You might not agree with it, but I like Nick Nurse as a coach. I think Milwaukee messed up not hiring Nick Nurse. He's a proven head coach. He won a title in Toronto. He's innovative as a defensive guy. He's, they say he had problems with Pascal Siakam. Hey, anybody can have a problem with Pascal Siakam. His head might not be on straight. He's not the most mature guy in the world here, right? So, listen, I would have hired Nick Nurse if I'm the Milwaukee Bucks, but they decided to go with Adrian Griffin, and we'll see if that works out. There's all kinds of reports that people wanted Nick Nurse, but Giannis wanted Adrian Griffin, and this is Giannis's pick. We'll see. We'll see if it works out. You never know how these guys are. They could be great assistants and they don't work out, or sometimes they do. So hope for the best for Adrian Griffin, but you never know. But I like what Philadelphia did. The big question there is, what are they going to overpay James Harden? He and Moore usually are on lockstep. I don't see him going to Houston, but you never know.
Okay, as far as Joe Mazzulla goes, I agree with you, and I know that they took the interim tag off, but the way the NBA has gone recently, I mean, a guy like Monty Williams loses his job, then Joe Mazzulla can lose his job too, and I think, again, you got to have somebody out there, I've got to believe that. With what you said, and granted, okay, give them credit. They came back from 3-0, and they made it a series, and they damn near won the series. But on top of that, you also have this disconnect in the locker room. Like, there's no reason to – it doesn't sound like there's any reason to keep them. I don't know. Maybe
keep in mind, I know technically it's a 7-game series, but once again, I'll argue this. They're lucky, so lucky that they won Game 6. You could actually – that's one of those things where – if you're the Celtic ownership, you got to be sitting there going, all right, we won, 2 games and a third game, but that was the luckiest play we've ever had. So, but the bottom line is, what do you think about do you think Joe Mazzulla can grow? Do you think he can learn from this? Do you think he can have better handling of game situations. I mean, right now in the Eastern Conference, if you're the Boston Celtics and you're looking around, he ain't, you're saying, well, he ain't Eric Spoelstra. And if we're going to come back with this team, how are we going to do the next time we play the Miami Heat, let's say? So we'll see. And Nick Nurse, too, is now in Philadelphia. That has to be a concern if you're Boston.
Yeah,
he's in the division. How's he going to impact? There's a lot of question and answer, but only Brad Stevens and Wick Grossbeck are going to get to the bottom of this. And listen, part of me says, if I'm Wick Grossbeck, I'm firing Joe Mazzulla and get Brad Stevens, go back and coach the team.
I thought about that myself. I mean, it seemed when he made the he wanted to go to the front office. I guess that's fine. But, I mean, that guy was a pretty damn good coach and, took what he did at Butler and came to Boston. And, everybody thought he bit off more than he could chew, and he was outstanding.
Yeah. Plus, we don't know what they're going to do involving, what's going to happen with Jaylen Brown.
Well,
there are a lot of questions, but that team needs a head coach who's going to install an offense that is run like Miami's with discipline. People know what they're doing. They're not just coming down the court and firing up shots. Like I said, it's like an AAU team almost.
Yeah. Mitch Lawrence joining us, Sirius XM NBA Radio. Okay, let's talk about Jaylen Brown now, because we're talking about a guy that could be, he's 5 years, $295 million. Now, before anyone says anything, the money is crazy. It's outlandish. But you know what? If that's what he can get, if that's his value, that's his value.
Good for him.
If you're Boston, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Like, I will say this for Jaylen Brown. He plays both ends of the floor. I wonder, like, if he doesn't come back, Boston's got to have a plan, kind of like, if you're going to fire a coach, you got to make sure you have – who would that be? And then if you're Jaylen Brown, I know he's chirped a little bit. He wasn't happy last year about being in the Kevin Durant talks, whatever. But there is no way in hell, Mitch, that he's turning down $60 million a year, is there?
No, and good for him. More power to him. That's great. But I've seen enough of Jaylen Brown, and I'm not saying the Celtics feel this way. I feel this way. In a big spot last night where you needed him to come through because Jason Tatum obviously is very limited because of that ankle. Yeah. Jaylen Brown killed you with turnovers, with bad decisions. We've seen his act before. We've seen this movie before, Chico. He takes bad shots. He makes bad decisions on the court. He's a low IQ player. Yes, he's a tremendous athlete. He's on roller skates out there, turning the ball over at the wrong time. I mean, I got to look elsewhere to have my running mate. I'm going to keep Jason Tatum because Jason Tatum, I know last night was a flop for him, and some people thought he quit. I don't know about that. I think that ankle was really bad. We've seen what he done in big pressure situations, in road games, in closeout games, especially in their run to the finals last year. Then he collapsed in the finals, but I'm not giving up on him. The other guy, I want to see what I can get for him if I can make a deal.
What do you think Jason Tatum thinks of Jaylen Brown? We know what he says, but what do you think? I mean,
I really don't have any idea. No clue.
Okay.
No clue. Who knows?
Because, I mean, like when they talk about the disconnect after the 3-0 deficit, like, is that just with Coach Mazzulla? Is that all three of them? Like, nobody, it was kind of crazy just to hear him say it to begin with. But,
listen, that's like, you're being coached by a guy who was the head coach at Fairmont State in West Virginia. And he went through an NBA season. And then in the playoffs, you saw, man, this guy's learning how he goes, and he's making mistakes, and he's not on top of stuff in terms of timeouts. And he got better at some things, but, these players are used to going, they went to the finals last year under Ime Udoka. And quite frankly, I mean, you go back on the Boston Celtics season, that's probably right there identified as problem number one. That whole thing blows up their whole game plan to go back with the same team, the same coach. You add Malcolm Brogdon, you add Danilo Gallinari, and we're all sitting there going, yeah, the Celtics are going to be back in the finals. And it all falls apart because you had this internal stuff involving Ime Udoka. And Will Hardy's not there. He took a job because Danny Ainge loves him. He's out in Utah. So now you're going down the bench to a guy who is a total neophyte. But, you talk to people around the league. If Eric Spoelstra had that roster, they beat Miami in 4 games probably.
All right, Mitch, let's talk about Eric Spoelstra. Let's talk about the Miami Heat. And as we get ready for the NBA Finals, the Heat and Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. All right, Miami, I've got to ask, I was actually thinking of you yesterday watching this game, and I'm thinking I got a perfect question for Mitch because I know he's got the New York background. I'm looking at, Caleb Martin could have very easily won the MVP of the series. And no disrespect to Jimmy Butler, but Caleb Martin was outstanding. And again, last night, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, these names, it's like, and I don't mean to say like they have no talent, but it's not someone that the average fan's going, oh, I can't wait to see Gabe Vincent play. Or a lot of people probably just recognized him now in the postseason. When you were in New York, and this is where I want to talk about Pat Riley here. When you were in New York, like John Starks, Anthony Mason, guys like that weren't, if I remember right, well, I know Starks wasn't. Mason, I think, was playing overseas. It seems like Pat Riley, and certainly Spoelstra coached him up, but it seems like Pat Riley, like he has that saying of, we're not for everybody. This is just like the Knicks in a way with some of those ancillary players where you're going, who the hell are these guys? And they develop into stars. You're
going way back to Pat Riley coaching the Knicks.
Yeah.
Which is, for people who don't know, basically 30 years ago.
Yeah, long time ago.
Right? So, long time. But, the thing about Pat Riley is, and he's shown this in his time in New York and his time now, he didn't acquire those players in New York because Dave Checketts and Ernie Grunfeld were the front office. What he's done is he's gone to Miami and he's run the show. And, there's questions about, can Pat Riley run the show when he went down there? They gave him everything, right?
Yeah.
In New York, he was the coach, but Dave Checketts and Ernie Grunfeld did the player acquisitions. They did the transactions and getting the talent. So, yeah, the Miami thing is a great, like I think we've told you before, it's not, these guys were undrafted, but it's not like Tom Brady going, 199 or these guys. I mean, these guys were undrafted in a 2-round draft.
Right.
That goes 60, right? 60 players. And these guys, Gabe Vincent was on Sacramento for a brief minute. And Caleb Martin was with Charlotte.
Yeah.
And, in the offseason, Caleb Martin, there were like 20 teams that were interested in Caleb Martin. When it came for people to basically, show me the money or not, nobody did anything but the Heat. And he's gone to Miami and he's worked on his shot and he's become a very good player. And listen, Max Strus has had a bit, he's a little shaky here, but Gabe Vincent's had a hell of a series. Getting back to your original point though, Pat Riley knows what he's doing, and Eric Spoelstra when it comes to player development, and that's a huge deal for them.
All right,
and they were doing that, ever since Pat got to South Florida. So I think this team, for him, he's getting more satisfaction going to a real finals versus a bubble finals, and going to a real finals without a LeBron James and a Dwayne Wade and a Chris Bosh.
Now,
that organization has to feel very proud that we're able to beat the Bucks, the Celtics, all right, and the Knicks, but really the Bucks and the Celtics along the way. No bubble, none of that stuff that Mitch Lawrence is always critical about. You didn't play in front of fans. You played in an empty gym in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. This is the real finals run test, and they've passed it to get to the finals, and they didn't have a LeBron James, and they didn't have a Dwayne Wade, and they didn't have a Chris Bosh. That to me is why it's such a great story about Miami.
Can they finish the job against Denver?
You know what? I'm going to give them more of a chance than most people. I think a lot of people are probably thinking Denver's going to win in 5 games, a gentleman's sweep, let's say. I think Miami's got a great shot. I mean, look, they don't match up with Jokic. Who does, right? He'll probably kill him. But can they deal with Jamal Murray? And can they deal with Michael Porter Jr. and these other guys for Denver? Yeah, I mean, we know Denver has the home court. The altitude question, we'll see what happens there. I think Miami's, one of the things you know about Miami and Pat Riley is He's been doing this for years. You don't notice any big overweight dudes huffing and puffing down the court in Miami.
Sure, but
He's
they
always
are
testing
a little
players for body fat.
Yeah.
And they're very, that's a well-conditioned team. So,
but they are a little bit, Mitch, real quick. They are a little bit older than, and I mean, in the beginning, you thought 3-0, this is going to be perfect. Now all of a sudden, a banged up Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, they had to play extra games.
Yeah. Do you think that's a factor?
It could be. What you don't want, and this is why they're probably kicking themselves, is they should have won in 6 and had the extra rest.
Right.
You don't want to play extra games in the playoffs. That's what kills you with veteran guys. Where does it kill you? In their legs. So they start coming up short on jump shots, effort plays, stuff like that. So that's a good point. And Denver's been sitting around getting a little rusty, but they're a formidable team. So the good thing for Miami too is Denver's never won anything. So they're new. We'll see how they handle the final stage. You never know.
All right, real quick, last thing for you, buddy. We always appreciate your time. Again, Mitch Lawrence with Sirius XM NBA Radio, longtime New York Daily News columnist covering the NBA. Bob Myers stepping down as Warriors GM. Not a big surprise. I mean, huge move, not a huge surprise. I thought as soon as whenever somebody says, I said this earlier in the show, seemingly whenever anybody ever says, I'm going to think about it, usually that means no. But two things. Bob Myers, I would think, if he's out a year, maybe say 2, whenever he does come back, and I get the feeling he'll get the itch and he'll be back, there will be no shortage of teams lining up to get him, correct?
Absolutely. And he's a West Coast guy, UCLA. Before the Golden State move, he's an agent. He's there 12 years. He drafts Draymond Green. He signs Andre Iguodala. He came up with the game plan for, getting Kevin Durant as a free agent when a lot of us thought Kevin Durant's not going to go to Golden State. He just lost to them. Why would he join them? Right. And he did that. And then he hires Steve Kerr. It's a major loss for that team. If it's going to be Joe Lacob's son plus Mike Dunleavy Jr., these guys have not done what, they've got no track record. They have no resume. So we'll see. But you're right about Bob. I mean, listen, I know Lawrence Frank. He runs the Clippers. I knew him when he was an assistant coach with the Nets, and he's working for Steve Ballmer. Who's to say that Steve Ballmer doesn't get tired of Lawrence Frank at some point and say, I can bring Bob Myers back to L.A., run the Clippers? Who's to say we don't know really what's going on in Phoenix, do we, with the new owner, Matt Ishbia? Except that he likes to make big splashes.
It's going to be Isaiah Thomas.
Maybe, can't hire Isaiah Thomas because of what happened in New York, leaving under the circumstances he did, that put the kibosh on that. But could you imagine if you want to make a splash and you're Phoenix, you're not that far off the West, you're in the Pacific Division and all. You got Bob Myers who's available, and you're Matt Ishbia, new owner. You've got Kevin Durant who's worked with. Hey, could that make sense in a year? Who's to say no?
So what is?
I would think he would stay on the West Coast.
What's the near future for the like moving forward for the Golden State Warriors? I mean, they've got
they got major questions. You got to figure out what's going on with Draymond Green and his buddy Jordan Poole.
His buddy.
Steve Kerr is not gonna run the team. He ran Phoenix. He found that to be very difficult. He likes coaching, obviously. They're not gonna, this is not, when people talk about the last dance, right? That was when Chicago, everybody was leaving. Steph Curry's not going anywhere.
Right.
Klay Thompson's not going anywhere. So they're going to come back and do some retooling, you would think, with those guys. But what are those moves and how they execute those moves? And now Bob Myers isn't the guy in charge of making those moves. It's a big, big question mark. You just don't know. If you're a Golden State Warrior fan, Chico, you can't feel that, encouraged that Bob Myers isn't around anymore because all the moves he made seemed to work. All the big moves he made seemed to work out. Of course, people say, well, what happened with the James Wiseman thing? Hey, but 12 years he was there. He built them. They got themselves a little mini dynasty. And of course, he inherited Curry and Thompson. But the other moves that I mentioned, he's not there anymore. That's a huge loss for that franchise. Major loss.
NBA Finals beginning Thursday. Miami at Denver for Game 1. I gotta go. I love what Miami's doing.
Right.
Or as far as obviously
team.
Yeah, I love Spoelstra. Like, in my opinion, it's not even a question who the best coach in the league is. And
Right.
I know Pop has the resume, nothing like, but I'm saying just right now.
Right.
I just wonder if that really will have an effect. And I know you said, you're right, Pat Riley, remember when LeBron went there and it was just, I mean, these guys are running and running and running and running. These guys are in good shape, but a 7-game series, you already came into that banged up. Do they get Hero back for the series?
We're talking about game 3, which some people are like,
no.
Well, he's a guy who just likes to shoot, doesn't play a lot of defense. So do you really want him back here on this role? But they'll take him back, obviously. But it would be game 3. That's what they're saying.
So do you? I'm going to go Denver in 6. Your call.
Yeah, that sounds about right. 5 or 6.
Okay.
But it'll be, the other thing that you have to look at if you're a Miami fan is you're not going up against Joe Mazzulla anymore. Michael Mallone's a good coach. Now it's his first finals, but that gap between Eric Spoelstra and the opposing coach has narrowed.
Good point. Very good point. Mitch Lawrence, Sirius XM NBA radio, longtime NBA columnist, buddy. Always love the conversation. We'll see how this final series plays out, and we'll hit you up next week.
Great. Thanks, Chico. Enjoyed it. Take care.
All right. Thank you. That is, again, Mitch Lawrence joining us here on the Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Network. A lot of good stuff there. A lot of decisions to be made in both Boston and Golden State. Well, even some decisions in Cleveland. Speaking of Cleveland, we're going to shift gears to the gridiron when we come back because, boy, this DeAndre Hopkins thing, and I get it. He's a star wideout. He's got history and good history with Deshaun Watson. But I need a clarification on something, and we need to kind of vet this a little more other than just, bring him in. Like the video game. Sign him up. We'll pick him up. There's a little bit more to it. We'll talk about it when we come back. And, of course, want to hear from you. 216-626-7901. 216-626-7901. It is the Chico Bormann Show right here on the Big Play Network. We are back on this Tuesday, final half hour of the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Network. And, of course, you can stream us live. We are here each and every day, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3. You can stream us live on Twitter at Chico Show CLE. Go over to YouTube and type in the Chico Bormann Show. And if you're not subscribed and following already, go ahead and hit that button. And, well, we appreciate it. Good stuff there from Mitch Lawrence talking a little NBA. But I want to shift gears because we know this. There's never an off season when it comes to the Browns, and that's good. And I think all in all, just now I've been... If anything, I've been the guy very cautious because we've been here before. Well, wow, what a great offseason. Wow. But I like what they've done, okay? I like what they've done free agency. Then again, I also liked what they did when they signed. I loved the John Johnson sign. Oh, yes, a leader. Until you're not a leader. But that's all right. Speaking of John Johnson, though, his contract, I believe it's his $15 million number comes off the books June 1. Boom, I believe that is Thursday. Am I right? So, yeah, by the end of this week, even the date, Boom's like, stand by. Let me check on that. Yes, it is June 1st. So it does free up some money for the Browns. I'm not trying to throw a wet blanket on DeAndre Hopkins is a great wide receiver. I saw an interview with Deshaun Watson, and he was talking about his catch radius, and yes, like that. He reminds me of Mike Williams, although he's better than Mike Williams. Like Mike Williams with the L.A. Chargers, were they teammates at Clemson? No, that would have been.
They're a few years apart.
Yeah, forget it. I'm thinking of Justin Ross, I think, was the guy that was with Williams.
That would line up, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson, first of all, they made great music together. We'll use a pun that Bohm understands and enjoys.
I love that.
They made great music together, 3 years, 2017 to 2019.
A real Simon and Garfunkel.
You Can Call Me Al is one of my all-time favorite songs.
Oh, really?
A man
featuring
walks down,
Chevy Chase in the music video?
Man walks down the... Yeah, what is that?
That was such a weird video.
Man walks down the street. He says, why am I... All right. Anyway, they made sweet music together like Simon and Garfunkel, Boom. And now everybody... I mean, the obvious link is, well, they played together before. Let's bring them in and let's reunite them, and let's do it. Okay. DeAndre Hopkins, there's a few things that DeAndre Hopkins wants. Not a big deal. Significant contract, contending team, and a great defense. Because in the words of DeAndre Hopkins, defense wins championships. I agree. So, I mean, look, if you're DeAndre Hopkins and you can you have your pick of the litter and you can choose where you go and where you sign and you and your... That's what happened when the Cardinals said adios, released him. So he's free to sign anywhere. Now, I think it's worth pointing out according to reports, and this is from CBS Sports, the only two teams, not only CBS Sports, it's Albert Breer with Sports Illustrated, that the Bills and the Chiefs were the only two teams to be talking trade with Arizona before he was outright released. And reports are that they are still interested in signing DeAndre Hopkins. If you're DeAndre Hopkins, okay, so you want to play with a good quarterback. I'd say that Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen would qualify. A contender, I would say that the Chiefs and the Bills are that. Yeah, yes, Bo.
Now, OBJ got $16 million this offseason.
Odell Beckham Jr. got a fully guaranteed 1-year, $15 million deal.
So you have to think it's got to top that for sure, right?
And and you led me right into my next point. And by the way, the other thing that DeAndre Hopkins wants is a great defense. And the Chiefs and even if they don't necessarily have the greatest defense, you got Patrick Mahomes in. So Good point, Bohm. Yes. DeAndre Hopkins, in his words, has made the comment, I want a significant contract. Okay? What that means exactly, we don't know. We can speculate. But I really think people here, I'm going to call out my buddy Nick Padone, and it's okay to want him. Like, do I want DeAndre Hopkins? Yes. But I think sometimes we get like, oh, this is going to happen. Absolutely. They want, he is going to take, he is willing to take $5 million and Cavs season tickets just so he can play with Deshaun Watson. He loves that dude that much and loves playing with him. That he's coming to Cleveland. I mean, if it happens, great. But when we keep sending out, oh, this is a done deal. All right, this is going to happen. Deshaun Watson, and recently Deshaun Watson made the comment that, yes, I'd love to be reunited with DeAndre Hopkins. You don't say. Like, what? You know what? I'm good. I mean, I've got Anthony Schwartz, and really DeAndre Hopkins. He was overrated. People talk about catch radius and all that stuff. He's not that. Yeah. No.
Chico is the Pope Catholic.
I believe he is. And I'm Catholic as well, Bo. Thank you for asking. I'm not the Pope.
You just have it in common.
Yes. Again, you tell me. Boom, you give it to me like it is. Sometimes I don't like it, but I accept it. Am I being too pessimistic with the DeAndre Hopkins thing?
I think that Browns fans are being overly optimistic.
Okay.
Look, it just feels like you have this connection, and we know that Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins are in communication with one another.
Yeah.
And it feels like something that's extremely plausible, but the reality is the Browns are going to have to claw up and like take out these other organizations and beat them out with a better offer, with a more appealing situation. There's a lot that the Browns, I guess, don't really have going for them in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, make no mistake, Deshaun Watson, that I get it. Like, well, that's got to be a done deal. Of course he would love, I'm sure that's mutual. What I think is interesting, this is where I need a clarification. Remember when I brought up that list and it was DeAndre Hopkins talking about, quarterbacks it was quarterbacks he'd like to play with now, I don't want to say everybody made a big deal, but it was a talking point. It was fodder for us in the media that Deshaun Watson, if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't even in the top 5. Like, where was he on the list? Now, the clarification I'm looking for is maybe DeAndre Hopkins didn't include him because, well, he's already played with them, and that it should be known that, yeah, of course I'd love to play. I don't know. Like, was it a list of guys that you haven't played with that you want to play with? In that case, Deshaun Watson wouldn't be on that list. But I thought he was on the list just kind of further down. I don't want to make a huge deal out of this list thing, but like everybody's making it seem around here, or some, that like, oh my gosh, DeAndre Hopkins cannot get to Cleveland fast enough to reunite with Deshaun Watson. Pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the reality at the end of the day is that it doesn't matter how tight your brotherhood is with your former teammate. Like, passing up the opportunity for, A, payday, and B, playing with Patrick Mahomes, I feel like that has to be any receiver's dream. I mean,
yeah.
That's the perfect landing spot for any receiver. If you could pick anywhere you want to go, get any amount of money that feels sufficient, that's the spot.
Okay, and I hate I'm going to continue to be Debbie Downer here, all right? Again, let me go back. I would love, read my lips, I would love to have DeAndre Hopkins. Who wouldn't? The guy's an incredible wide receiver. But if he's looking at contenders and great defenses, yeah, I mean, he lists the Browns. I thought this was interesting. This should piss off the Browns fan base, now that I think about it, because DeAndre Hopkins, in an interview the other day, said he views the Browns as a dark horse contender. What do you mean a dark horse? You kidding me? we're the no way dark horse. Like if I said that, if I said on the air, I think the Browns are a dark horse contender. Why you got to be so negative, Chico? Maybe if you actually like pumped them up a little bit, maybe if you said they'd be 15-2 instead of 9-8 or 10-7, maybe they'd win more and maybe everything would change. Maybe, probably not.
I don't think he meant it in that way with like ill intentions, but
No.
I could totally see it misconstrued.
No,
like that.
He didn't mean. That's my whole point.
Yeah.
That's what
It
what
is
the
implying
joke is.
that you have the perception that everyone expects you to suck.
Right. That's okay. That's the joke. Yeah, he didn't imply that to mean. He didn't mean it to mean that it was. Oh yeah, the Browns are terrible. I think you just whatever. But I just think it's ironic. I think it's a little funny because we're very testy. Now I get it. You fans have been dragged through the mud. I've said it once. I'll say it 5,000 times. Nobody deserves more success, a fan base, than Cleveland Browns fans. They have been through hell, and they just keep coming back for more, and I'm one of you, okay? But part of what I do, and I guess who I am, because I like to think I'm genuine, is trying to, like, look at it realistically. Trying not to be, like, when I worked in Pennsylvania, Steeler fans, they would call into my show, and they would, by the end of a 2.5-minute phone call, I would have a guy so frustrated and ticked off at me because I wouldn't agree with him that Ike Taylor was a surefire Hall of Famer. Not that he wasn't a good corner. He was a good corner. I like Ike Taylor. Liked him at Florida. But what do you mean he's not a... You're just saying that because you're a Browns fan. No, I mean, honestly, I am kind of objective. I try to be. And I just think, like, I think sometimes, we get a little too tunnel vision. And it's, look, that's part of being a fan. But we got to stop with and especially some in the media. Like, oh, the tea leaves are out there. Are you connecting the dots?
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
You mean the ones that have Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins playing together for 3 years in Houston? Yes, I know. We all know. I don't. Here's the other thing. Now, I'm not saying DeAndre Hopkins is not. Sounds like a good teammate, whatever, wants to win. But, folks, like it or not, the Browns, there's been a lot of drama here the last couple of years. I mean, the Baker situation, the Odell situation, now, Deshaun Watson, now he's the quarterback. And yes, does DeAndre Hopkins love him? Sure. But if we're to believe Albert Breer, by the way, I do, that the Bills and the Chiefs were having extensive talks with the Arizona Cardinals about DeAndre Hopkins. If we're to believe that, and again, I do, it stands to reason, and there are other, now it's speculation, not necessarily confirmed, that, oh, yeah, they're still hot on his trail, and they want to bring him in. Now, from a money standpoint, and that's where I wanted to be clear, like, yeah, some money does free up. John Johnson, as of June 1st, and by the way, did you know John Johnson is not with a team right now?
Really?
Things that make you go,
Reputation tarnished.
Leader, not so much. Tweeting during a game about the offense when you're a safety and not really making enough plays to even be talking about anybody and kind of being the conduit for dissension in the locker room, pointing fingers at one another in the side. Gee. Anyway, so
red flags everywhere.
Yeah, so John Johnson is a free agent still. Boom, just loves him. You love yourself for that guy. Red flags everywhere. What's that from?
I don't know. It's just
I was hoping it was from a movie.
I invented that quote.
You invented that, and you thought it was that hilarious. Red flags everywhere.
Just everywhere you look. In every facet.
Let's everybody laugh together. Ready? Say it again, Boom. There are what?
Red flags I say everywhere.
All right, good job, Boom. That was freaking hilarious. Yeah, with John Johnson, yeah. But anyway, his contract comes off. It frees up $15 million. We'll see what happens. But again, DeAndre Hopkins, he's not going to sign here. People are saying, well, make it happen, Andrew Berry. I mean, like, what do you want him? He's got some money to play with, but is it the money that DeAndre Hopkins is looking for? Probably not. And I know that you say, like, do I know immediately that DeAndre Hopkins, from a talent standpoint, immediately comes in and is the most talented receiver? Sure. But is it an immediate fit? Is Amari Cooper fit? I don't know. But all I know is I have to worry about those things. And plug your ears. I'll give you 3 seconds to turn it off or turn away. 3, 2, 1. I have to worry about those types of things because it's the Cleveland Browns. I have to worry about that being an issue. Nobody's going to care as long as they're winning. Yeah, but what if they're not winning? What if this guy's not getting enough balls his way? What if this guy, wait a minute, DeAndre, why do you think I signed with Cleveland? Amari Cooper, I'm making 20. And I don't think Cooper's that way. I don't think Elijah Moore, although Elijah Moore had some issues with the Jets, probably more so because the Jets were pinheads. But Elijah Moore could have handled it better too. I love the Elijah Moore signing, by the way. I think Elijah Moore, and the more I hear about Elijah Moore, we're thinking him as that guy that can go vertical and take the top off of defense. Elijah Moore, he's a good route runner. This guy, you can line him up all over the place. I'm not saying he's DeAndre Hopkins, okay? I'm just saying that you really have to balance, like, is this somebody we absolutely, positively have to have for what we're going to have to sacrifice? Not give up, but sacrifice money-wise. Because, again, starting next year, folks, like the Browns, there's going to be some really tough decisions having to be made. Like now all of a sudden bills are coming due. Expensive bills coming due. So I'm not saying that it's crumbling. I'm not saying this isn't sustainable. But the reality is, and I want to point out again, this is a great problem to have. One that for years and years, second contract, for who? Johnny? Corey Coleman? Markevius Mingo? No, of course not. So now you've got draft picks that have turned out. You've got guys that you've brought in free agency. There is a lot of talent. I've always said that. The Browns are not lacking for talent. But again, it's not a video game, kids. I know. You hate me saying that. Chico, why don't you just go sit in your lawn chair, grab a glass of lemonade, eat a Werther's Original, and yell at the clouds? Maybe I will. Oh, maybe I will. But the mentality of just, pick him up like he's on fantasy waivers. Dude, what number are you as far as priority? I'm 2. Oh, then you might, dude, you got to put in a claim for him. Oh, you got to pay him? Oh, it's got to meet. Everything's got to check them. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. For a minute, I thought it was. I want him. But we got to stop with are you kidding me? Deshaun Watson just said that he would love to be reunited with DeAndre Hopkins. Whew. And, I love Padone. I do. Again, Deshaun is letting you know his thoughts about D-Hop. Their boy, D-Hop. Yeah. I mean, no shit. Really? You mean he really thinks highly of DeAndre Hopkins? Of course he does. But the idea that this automatically makes it, again, unless there is something behind the scenes, and maybe there is, so I'm not leaving, I'm not totally dismissing it, but maybe, just maybe, DeAndre Hopkins has talked to Deshaun Watson and then has talked to Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, and he's telling them, you know what? I told my agent, just get this done. Don't care about money. Now, DeAndre, you did say just a few days ago that you would like a substantial contract. Substantial. What's your definition? Everybody's got a different definition of substantial. $5 million, like I said, $5 million Cavs season tickets. Good? All right. Handshake. Let's do it.
We can get you on a cheesy local commercial, too. Get you a little extra signing bonus.
Hang on a second. There are more sources reporting that Deshaun Watson is making another statement that he'd love to play with DeAndre Hopkins.
Shock of the century, I tell you.
And somebody might say, and this is, I could see this argument. Deshaun Watson, hey, you know what? His opinion matters. Yeah, it does. It does. But I would say, as far as the wide receiver room, can always use him. Would love to have him. But when you balance everything, you know what? That might be money that I need to keep for, you're going to need some linebackers. And, I mean, who knows, right? I don't know if Odell Beckham Jr. got $15 million, okay? Now, I know they played together. Odell Beckham Jr. and Lamar Jackson didn't play together, and he got $15 million. So, obviously, so they played together, which makes it $15 million for Odell. You think DeAndre Hopkins and his agent are just like, I don't give a damn about that.
Sure, I'd take less for you, Deshaun.
I can care less what Odell's just signed for. So I hope they get him. I do. But I'm just going to let you know that between now and the end of the show, which is about 90 seconds, between now and tomorrow, between mandatory mini camp is coming up, and you got training camp then, and you're going to hear a lot more because I mean, the reporters are asking the questions, hey, what do you think about DeAndre Hopkins? Until he gets signed, that's going to be, so what do you think Deshaun Watson's going to say? I really would love to be reunited with him. I mean, I haven't seen him like jumping up and down. I haven't seen him give an ultimatum. Now, if he says, we either sign DeAndre Hopkins or I'm retiring. Well, maybe we need to have a conversation. But I know he's staring at a lot of money right now, and maybe Deshaun would give. Maybe that's the agreement. Hang on a sec, Wendy. Maybe Deshaun said, I'll make up the difference. Whatever the Browns say they can afford, I'll make up the difference. And start the rumor mill, Boom. We got a new one. All right, we're out of time. Yep, here we go. And the time it just took for me to explain that, we've got another report. Deshaun Watson really, really, really likes DeAndre Hopkins, would love to be reunited with him. I'd love to be reunited with Bohm tomorrow. Bohm, is that possible? Will you be in tomorrow?
I do believe that it is within the realm of possibility.
Okay, that's good. It's in the ballpark. Speaking of in the ballpark, it's Wednesday. We'll go around the MLB diamond. I think, or sometimes with Booney, Succession. Boom, I'm already into the third season.
Oh.
By the way, does Kendall Roy, different haircut, but does Kendall Roy look like Adam Schefter?
That's the first I've heard of this. I think you raise an interesting point.
Now maybe it's just the football rumors and DeAndre Hopkins coming here. Maybe I just see Shefty now and my saying, but they do look alike.
Always wearing the suits too, always holding one or two phones at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Very good. Loving Succession. But these
phenomenal finale.
when did the finale happen already?
It happened on Sunday, Chico. It was a somber day.
Right. The only thing, like trying to steer clear, if this would be 3 months from now and I started, I wouldn't be worried. I am so tepid going on Twitter or any social media because they're out there like, oh, well, blah, 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 happened. As soon as I see something, I have to immediately, because I want to watch it through. Season 3, Logan Roy, his favorite saying, which he tells people over and over and over again, bleep off.
Season 3 had 2 scenes where I did not like, where I laughed the absolute hardest. One of them was like towards the end of the season, so I won't get into that one. But there was another one that featured a Nirvana song, and it interrupted at a very important moment in a speech given by Shiv, and it was very well done.
I'm trying to think of.
I want to say episode 4.
Greg, the character Greg just kills me. He plays that so. Like he's talking to his grandpa about like getting a lawyer or whatever, and he's like, I'm in battle, and they all have guns and swords, and I have a loincloth. And like his grandpa's like, maybe not the best analogy. All right, we're out of time. Brett Boone tomorrow, talking more Browns rumors. Deshaun Watson, he's probably going to keep saying that he loves DeAndre Hopkins. Make it happen. Pick him up. He's there. He's available. He's on the way. Pick him up. You have priority order on your fantasy league. I'm Mike Chico Bormann for Michael Bohm, Chico Bormann Show. Stream us online every day. Twitter at Chico Show CLE. YouTube, The Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe. We appreciate it. If everybody else, I appreciate it. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Wednesday, 1 p.m., right here on the Big Play Sports Network. See ya.